Audiolab have had a huge success on their hands with their 6000 range of products, and I reviewed them years ago, long before other YouTubers got their grubby mitts on them, and I was really impressed with their build quality and sound quality for the money. But with the Omnia, Audiolab have gone all in. And that is because it's an all-in-one type of HiFi system, but its price, £1,599, I think puts it in a completely different category to the 6000 range, with much higher expectations, much stiffer competition, and there is stiff competition. But the Omnia, I think, will have one or two tricks up its sleeve that will make it stand out to you as the all-in-one system for you, but maybe one or two things that would make it not so. That's HiFi for you. The all-in-one HiFi system has become extremely popular, and it's easy to see why. We just have the one box that we add our favourite speakers to, and I think the Omnia is likely Audiolab's answer to this shift in demand, and it seems heavily based around their very popular 6000 range of products, but with some very key distinct differences. But it does throw up the question, why would an audiophile buy the Omnia when they could buy maybe the 6000A Play and the 6000 CDT CD player, get pretty much the same functionality and keep a few £100 in their pocket? One obvious reason is I think that Audiolab have done a great job with the Omnia's industrial design. I think it looks nice from every angle, especially looking down onto it, and its rounded corners softens and improves how it looks compared to the more square 6000 range. The Omnia is large though, especially compared to some of its peers, but it has a nice weight to it and the build quality is impressive in all regards. There is a 4.3-inch colour screen, which is new for the Omnia, and I have some mixed feelings about it, but I think it's a nice addition because it means more information can be displayed from menus. Or we could choose between two different variants of digital VU meters. Audiolab say that these do work in real time, and VU meters are cool, right? Who doesn't want them? The 4.3-inch screen was not really large enough for me to see all the displayed information sat at my listening position, which is about 12 or so feet away, but I could see the volume level, and that is really important. And the screen does show some very cool animations, but there is never any album art displayed. On the rear, I was surprised to see what I would call a full suite of connections, both in and out, analog and digital. So even though the Omnia is the center of your audio universe, it doesn't have to be the whole universe. So we don't lose anything here choosing the all-in-one. And actually we gain nicer speaker cable terminals. And these small details I think matter at higher price tags. And looking at the spec, it does seem like the Omnia has the same 50 watts into 8 ohms and 75 watts into 4 ohms class AB amplifier that's used in the 6000 range. With one big difference, the Omnia has a different DAC. It's still an ESS Sabre Pro chip, but a higher model number, the 9038 Q2M, which is the same DAC that's used in the more expensive Archem SA30, which is interesting because I have both here and obviously I compared them. And the new DAC brings with it full MQA compatibility, which I think is a really nice addition, especially for those of you who listen to Tidal Masters, or who are maybe keen to do so. But in order to get MQA, you will need an external source or an external digital MQA feed into the Omnia via the USB optical or coaxial input. So you don't actually get MQA through the built-in music streamer. So it does feel like MQA is more of an afterthought rather than a core reason to buy the Omnia. One other difference is that the Omnia is room tested. And room tested is different to room ready, and you can look up the difference between those if you're not sure. And I'm not a Roon user, so I can't really tell you much about this. But I have been sitting here thinking whether we could use a Roon core server as that external digital feed that we need to get MQA from the Omnia. So whether we could use it to feed into the USB optical or SPDIF to give us that MQA signal that we might want. And if anybody knows the answer to that, please let us know down in the comments section. And then looking at the other specs, it does seem like a lot of them are very similar to the 6000 range of products. So I think the answer to the question, which should you buy, really boils down to some simple facts. Do you like the look and the idea of the simplicity of an all-in-one HiFi system? So less cables, less plugs, less boxes, clutter, and more simplicity, because that will come at a premium here, but you are also getting a higher spec unit with the option to use Rune as well. And I think if those things really appeal to you, well then you have your answer. Buy the Omnia. If not, just buy the 6,000 range of products. You know, keep a few £100 in your pocket to spend on the wife. Nope, sorry, to spend on records. Once you've made your decision that an all-in-one HiFi system is for you, well then you are hit with another very big question. Why buy the Omnia instead of one of its peers? Which initially seems like a difficult decision, but that could be made really very easy for you if you are an audiophile that still spins a lot of silver discs, because I think the Omnia is one of the only new products of this type and category that features a built-in CD player. I did a little bit of research. It seems like, you know, Marantz equivalent definitely doesn't, Name's equivalent doesn't, Cambridge Audio's equivalent doesn't, and the two products I have here, one from Arcam, one from NAD, they definitely don't. So if, you know, listening to CDs is still big for you, well then the Omnia could be your choice of all-in-one HiFi system by default. And that's especially true when we talk about sound quality, because it really did not disappoint me. And that is because the Omnia sounds clean, crisp and smooth in the main, with the big sonic positive of sounding very open and very three-dimensional for its soundstage, which is nice. I always enjoy that. And I also enjoyed the overall balance the Omnia strikes between its leading edge clarity and smoothness. There is just about enough of both with very good timing. And vocals sound just about enough tonally satisfying, with just about enough clarity and resolution, but not too much to sound etched. The treble is a little softer than I think is ideal, but it's clear and present enough. And I did enjoy a higher frequency ambience presence in some live recorded music. It's definitely something that stood out to me, and something that I noticed listening to a Melody Gardot live EP or album that I've been really enjoying recently. And the bass from the Omnia is really very interesting, because regulars to the channel will know I'm extremely fussy when it comes to bass, and I generally like more bass than most people, mostly because of this room, because of my listening room. It allows me to have a hell of a lot of bass actually, and really the acoustics of this room warrants it. It really kind of needs it. And the Omnia delivered just about enough bass overall for me to be satisfied. Lovely in some music that is mastered bass hot, like Lady Blackbird Black Acid Soul, but there was not quite enough deeper bass impact from some electronic music that I listened to. But the bass quality from the Omnia is excellent. It's tight and controlled, very well timed, and it's definitely notes, not noise. But interestingly, this was not clear cut, because in some music the bass impact, the punch, the percussive bass was really very impressive, and I'm sure a lot of this sounds very familiar to you, excuse the pun, because it is that very atypical Audiolab sound. It's smooth, neutral sound that really, I think, appeals maybe a little bit more to my head than it does my heart because of personal preferences, but it's also a sound that's very difficult to fault because it's so even-handed, because it's so well judged, because it's so well balanced across pretty much every single sonic area. And there is also, as you would hope, consistency in the sound quality between playing CDs, streaming from Qobuz and listening to vinyl using the internal phono stage. The phono stage really impressed me actually. It's very clean and clear sounding with a nice amount of gain, and it mirrors the sound that I just described, but I do think the digital sources have the edge here. And I also listen loud, and I had the Omnia always turned up. Its 50 watts was enough power for the Mission 770, but I have heard them sound better for bass and in other ways on amplifiers with more power and control. So that was my next step, to do some comparisons. The Arcam SA30 now costs £1,899, and it is a very viable alternative so long as listening to CDs is not important to you, of course. And to make the comparison fair, I disengaged Dirac and then listened to the Melody Gardot Live in Soho EP that I've been really enjoying lately. And it's interesting because both of these amplifiers feature the same DAC, but it couldn't sound any more different. The sonic presentations are totally different. And straight away you do notice the Arcam has more power. Everything sounds more solid, and it's also maybe a little warmer sounding compared to the Omnia, or maybe it's just a little darker. It's really hard to say. Melody's vocal is stronger sounding, and the crowd claps have more body to them from the Arcam. And there is more emphasis on the center vocals with less emphasis on the backing instruments, and definitely definitely less of a sense of live occasion and soundstage space. So some of this I prefer and some I don't. And I can easily see the sound presentations from these amplifiers, splitting audio files straight down the middle, 50-50. But then, obviously the RCam offers Dirac, so I engaged Dirac, and obviously a personal calibration that I did, and that really changes the sound here, really changes the overall difference between these units even more, because now the RCam can really fill the room with much more bass and a much more enveloping, bigger, bolder sound compared to the Omnia, and that gives each musical element or musical instrument more perceived dynamics or more perceived saturation and fullness and solidity in the soundstage. And I think this would now be more of an 80-20 type of situation, where I think 80% of audiophiles would prefer the greater perceived dynamics that the RCam can deliver. But there would still be, I think, 20% that would prefer the Omnia, because with the Omnia there is this wonderful sense of grace and space and kind of easygoing nature to music, which I think a lot of audiophiles would class as musicality. And I think the RCam definitely gives a grander overall sound, bigger, bolder, stronger, more powerful, but it's also a little bit maybe in its musical delivery by comparison. But I do think that the RCam probably has the edge overall here in this direct comparison once Dirac has been engaged. And it makes me wonder, what would be achievable from a product like the Audiolab Omnia if that had Dirac on board too. And I think that leads me nicely onto something really important to talk about of a product like this, and this category and this type, and that is interaction. The Audiolab remote control is nice, it's very functional, but nothing to sing to the hills about in terms of style. For network music streaming, the same as all Audiolab products, it's all done within DTS PlayFi. And the first thing to know about DTS PlayFi is that it works different to a lot of other music streaming type of solutions. DTS PlayFi will take the music stream from the control device that you're using, say a phone or a tablet. It actually takes the music from that tablet or that phone. So if you turn the tablet off or the phone off, then it will kill the music stream to the product. So in this case, kill the music stream to the Omnia. So I think in a situation like this, it makes sense to have a dedicated music control device, such as a tablet, in your listening room at all times. And I kind of have this situation anyway, and I use an iPad Pro. And using the PlayFi app gives you access to a lot of different music services. And obviously using it to stream from Qobuz, once you've set up a zone and logged into Qobuz, actually it was really very simple, and I could access all the music and play it all fine. And I used the Omnia with a wired LAN connection, and then it played files up to 192 kilohertz just fine. Obviously wireless might be different because it's network dependent, which is why wired LAN connections is always better. In order to get high-res music playback, you have to select critical listening mode, which disables some of the PlayFi multi-room capability in favor of a better sound. So critical mode was always on for me. PlayFi as a control app is quite basic, but you can do most of what you need to do, of course, in order to browse music and build a play queue, but I don't find it a very engaging user experience. You have to select albums from a list and not a grid, and that's not my preferred way of browsing a library. And you can't see your play queue while you're searching for new music, which again is not my preference. And the PlayFi app, it did work very fast, as I've just shown you or been showing you on the iPad Pro, which was great actually. I like that, how quick and snappy everything was, but the user experience is definitely nowhere near as feature rich or as engaging to use as something like BlueOS on NAD, and I don't think it's not quite as good either as Music Life from Harman that I was using with the RCam. And the RCam just feels quicker and snappier to do things. You feel like you're into your music quicker and music is playing quicker, which I definitely preferred. And yeah, I think it's close. I think PlayFi and Harman's Music Life are similar in terms of standard of quality of experience, but I still think the RCam's better. I still prefer it. And then there's one feature that I suppose for some audiophiles might be a deal breaker with DTS PlayFi, and that is that it's not gapless or doesn't play music gaplessly. And I think this purely depends on what type of audiophile you are, because a lot of albums obviously have gaps in between tracks anyway. And I think the time gap between tracks playing on the Omnia through the PlayFi app is about the same as the track difference we get between vinyl, if that's of any use to anybody. But if you are an audiophile that listens to music that has or is intended to flow through the different tracks, well, then having a gap there, it can be quite a jarring thing, because the music just kind of stops instantly when you're used to it kind of flowing through. So like with all these things, it just depends on the type of audiophile that you are, and I suppose the kind of music that you're listening to. But gapless is definitely something that stands out. You don't have to only be into, long electronic DJ mixes. Even on that Melody Gardot Live in Soho EP, that's a live album or a live session that you're supposed to listen to, obviously flowing through the different tracks, and obviously the Omnia puts a gap, or the DTS PlayFi puts a gap in between those tracks. It's not intended to be there. Time to wrap things up. I think the Audiolab Omnia will be a big hit for audiophiles who love the concept of the all-in-one type of HiFi system while loving what Audiolab do in terms of sound quality. That relaxed, clean, clear, honest, maybe very British, listen for hours type of sound, because it is a really cracking sounding HiFi system, which is maybe just a little bass light for me personally. But I think the big winner for a lot of audiophiles will be that soundstage, that really open three-dimensional soundstage, because I know a lot of audiophiles really prioritize that. And it's especially true for the audiophile that still listens to a lot of CDs, because having that option built into the Omnia is pretty unique these days. And I know lots of audiophiles still own and listen to thousands and thousands of CDs. So I think that is a big advantage here. And I think really the only chink in the armour is DTS PlayFi. It's not quite perfect and doesn't quite give you the same user experience as some other solutions out there. So if you are an audiophile that listens to maybe more CDs or as many CDs as you do streamed music, well, then this balance might still sit really nicely for you. And of course, you could always get yourself an external music streamer that could feed an MQA stream into the Omnia and really kind of kill all those birds with one stone. But doing so, I think, does undo some of the benefit and idea of the all-in-one HiFi system. So like everything in HiFi, it's all about pros and cons, and having a system that gives you everything that you need to be happy, to enjoy what you have. So I hope you've enjoyed this review. I hope you found it useful and helpful. And if you'd like to see more reviews of this nature, make sure you subscribe to the Pursuit of Perfect System YouTube channel and hit the thumbs up, obviously, if you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all soon. Take care. Bye.